Okay, good afternoon. This is the Town Council Zoning and Regulatory Committee. It's just after 3 o'clock on August 13th. And if any member of the public wishing to attend this meeting seeks special accommodations in accordance with the American with Disabilities Act or state law, please contact Tammy Cunningham, Deputy Director of Human Resources. This meeting is being recorded and will be rebroadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. This meeting will be replayed via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Channel live video on demand archives on the Town of Barnstable's website. We'll proceed with the roll call, please.
Committee members: Steve Robichaud, Jake Dewey.
Here.
Councillor Crowe. Councillor Lutke.
Here.
Councillor Bloom. Councillor Clark.
Here.
Councillor Crocker.
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you, Cindy. The first item here is public comment. Do we have anyone from the public who would like to speak?
Hope you're having a good day.
Okay, all right, we have no one from the public. So we had arranged to have this special session today. This is an additional meeting for this committee, and it is to continue to review our zoning for the home occupation. And we had left off, and I think last time we were concerned that our building commissioner, Brian Florence, was not with us, and he should be here shortly. I understand he's running slightly late. So we'll get started. We'll continue our discussions, and then we'll have Brian join us. And Jim, you've given us some new information. Do you want to review what this is here?
Yeah, sure. So on Laserfish, so both, again, the board and the public have access to this. Are a couple handouts that Brian Florence has provided to the group, and I'll just go and pull them up so everyone can see as well. So if you go into the town's webpage, we have our special subcommittee page, Town Council Zoning Subcommittee, and then we have on the right side meeting materials. So everyone has access to all of these. Yes, sir.
Can I borrow the mouse for a second?
Yep.
Nobody can see what you're showing because I forgot to do something. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I gotta take it over there. I'll be right back. We have a new step and I haven't mastered it yet. I apologize. Sorry about that.
Fancy. Thank you. All right, so pulling back up the web page there. So under meeting materials, and then you can pull up Laserfish, which is the town's system for documents. And under today's meeting, the date of the meeting, we have 2 documents that have been uploaded here. And both come from Commissioner Brian Florence, and I'm sure he can speak to both of these more thoroughly. But I'll just quickly go over these real quick. 1 second as they come up. So the first item was this committee specifically had asked for a little bit more understanding of the home occupation and business license review. I know a couple of the members went and saw the process firsthand and asked for kind of an outline or spell out specifically how that functions. And so Commissioner Florence and his team did just that, outlining participants, the application and its process. And again, Brian Florence will go into more details here momentarily. And under business licenses, what is required, what they're looking for, and some helpful reminders when doing those reviews. In addition, one of the diagrams here, the setbacks diagram, that's meant to be for discussion purposes when we get to what is a front yard, what is a rear yard, what is a side yard. And so Brian will speak more to that. So those are the 2 new documents that you have before you. In addition, I have laid out or I provided the commissioner with many of your questions and comments that were made from the previous meeting, and he is prepared to speak to those as well. Let's see that. And so for the rest of it, you have the last document that was provided. Again, this document provides the home occupation as it stands today, the ordinance as it stands right now, the red line version of the existing home occupation ordinance that included site plan review, and a clean version of site plan review, and then one without site plan review, but trying to meet the intent of what the committee has been striving for, both in red line and clean version. So those are the key documents for this evening or this afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Yes, we had requested that from Mr. Florence, because what he does, as I say, the three of us, Steve, Will, and I, went to see that process. We asked him to codify it for us. And when he was doing that process, he explained that he uses the ordinance to back up his decisions. And that's why it's so detailed, because I don't know if the rest of you have been kind of looking around. I've been looking at other towns, and ours is far more detailed than the other towns. The other towns are very simple. They basically say, don't take away from the residential field. Basically, they say that a little bit more. And now that I understand why, because Brian is using this for his process. So that opens up some understanding into why ours is the way it is. And what is it, Chris? Yeah, Steve is, Cindy, I think Cindy knows that Steve is here. Yes, for the record. I just wanted. Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, it's on the record. Steve is here, Steve Robichaud. So I know we had had a little kind of a straw poll, and we decided to pursue the red lines with the site plan review. And I do see that in other towns. You know, if you get to certain, I've lost track of how many towns I've looked at, but some of them, they call them businesses, you know, businesses trigger versus a home occupation. So does everyone have what they had from last time? And we could continue moving along until Brian gets here? Okay, why don't we do that? And thank you, Jim, for that, because I have a check mark in the definitions by front yard. I think I told you guys in my precinct, there's two roads that are very close, so backyards and front yards are kind of interchangeable. So that's going to be a good discussion, I think. Or do we want to have that, was that better to wait for Brian, you think?
Yeah, I think so, because he's going to be best to describe how he interprets those. And you know, I think we could have a really good conversation about whether or not this definition needs to be changed specifically for the home occupation, because you know, we have called out front yard specifically for home occupations because the intent here is to mask whatever condition the home occupation is providing, so that it doesn't take away from the residential feel, and we don't go beyond that. However, throughout our zoning, and likely through building code as well, there is a front yard, backyard, side yard. So I think there should be a good dialogue about whether or not we need to further define side yard, backyard, and once Brian gets here, I think we can talk about that.
Yeah, and I think it's important too, because if we're overloading a backyard, somebody else's backyard may back up to that backyard, and that becomes equally detracting from the residential field, perhaps. Okay, I know we kind of bounced around a little bit.
Do you want to just see if there's any additional comments from the board about the definitions and then continue on from there?
Yeah, you want to, okay, that's a good place to start, to refresh ourselves. You want to go back to definitions, Steve? You have something?
I would just, you know, say that as I thought about it more, I really agree with the comments that are on the record from Mr. Dewey. And I think that when staff digs in again to another kind of go through revision, I watched the recording and I thought that all of the comments we made about the definitions were critical and should be incorporated. Just thought that we had some really good discussion there last time.
Yeah, and we have a pretty thorough list here already: backyard, parking equipment, screening, et cetera. We have a handful of these. I know Brian's going to offer some opinions on some of them, but we could certainly tee those up, yes.
Beautiful. That was all.
Okay, good. Well, do you want to start on the next page then? Just do a quick review if we had, as I say, because I know we bounced around a little bit. On section B, has it up on the screen. Home occupation shall be permitted in all zoning districts as of right, subject to the following conditions. Anything jumping out for anyone there? Take a quick scan here.
In one, I mean, we're specifying within the dwelling unit, so are we allowing a second home occupation outside of the dwelling unit? Again, we're going back to that property versus unit discussion.
I know that was a big discussion for definitions, right?
That did come up last time, and I completely agree. I think you could be a little bit more all-encompassing and just say within the parcel.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah, I think we thought parcel. Chris, you had a cute little saying about the parcel or something.
I mean,
But,
but then
I
also, I guess I go the other way with that. Like, if, you know, wife has a cleaning company and husband has a landscaping company, but the cleaning company is very, you know, minimal, could they both operate it at their house? I mean,
Yeah, why not?
but maybe that
There's-
should go,
yeah.
maybe that
I would say yes,
pushes it to the next
but
threshold.
push it to the threshold, yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, so that strikes that whole thing. There is no other. So what do I think, and that just comes up in the ZBA, the intent. What is the intent? I mean, the overarching intent is to keep this residential feel.
Mhm.
So, but also, we want to be able to allow people to pursue, you know, employment and better their lives and make money if they're doing so in a way that's not going to detract from the residential feel. So we have to balance both of those. So this number one probably needs some work. Anybody have any suggestions? Or we just kind of look at the rest of them and see what we need to look at here?
I mean, I think it's basically that if more than one home occupation or more than one is only allowed under special permit or by special permit, basically.
Yeah, send it to
On-
ZBA.
Yeah, one on the property. But again, we're running into, what about condos? What about duplexes? What
Right.
about apartment buildings? You know, that's a dwelling unit versus a property or a dwelling unit.
That's right. With all of our multifamily, we're going to have people that are going to have businesses.
Potentially on both sides or
Yes,
in every unit.
there could be some in every unit. There could be.
I actually have no idea how we deal with the multifamily. Do you have any comments on that, Jim?
Yeah, so, I mean, home occupation is meant to be a use that is occupying the interior space with, there are some accessory items that spill out, such as a vehicle or maybe some loose equipment, as we've seen. I mean, for condos, for instance, yeah, I mean, if someone needs a business certificate and is working out of one of the apartment buildings that does, I don't know, CPA work or whatever, they are eligible to do so. But this would say that if you have a roommate, you only have one at that unit, and you would, right now, I mean, if we're talking about this specific one, if you had a second one, it would kick it to the next review or a site plan review. So yeah, that's how it would work. And so that wouldn't prohibit someone that's living on, I don't know, floor 3 to be also be able to have a similar business.
All right. Oh, let me ask a question about that. Maybe Cynthia is an example. Cynthia, you work from home, don't you, remotely? Do you have you have a home occupation license and all that?
No, because it's remote work for the council.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, because a lot
Yeah,
of
so that's
people are doing
different.
remote work for their jobs, so that's different.
Right, so home occupation is only going to apply to you if you are essentially running a business out of your house or at the bare minimum need an address for your business certificate. That's where a lot of folks get wrapped into this is
Remote work is not.
not remote work. Remote work, you're just sitting there at your computer working for X company in Boston, that's different. You're not owning and operating a business out of it. If you are, that's when you're going to get captured into this.
Jim's comments were very helpful, though, meaning, I understand why the dwelling unit term has been
Yeah.
used. I wonder if somebody with an ADU that's renting that ADU, would it be proper for that, to allow that, whoever is in that ADU to also have a business license?
So maybe dwelling unit is the right way to describe this.
I think it is, but it
The way
almost,
we're going with our zoning, right?
right, yeah. And if there's a primary structure, single-family home with a separate detached ADU, each one of those would be considered its own dwelling unit
And
by definition.
And I kind of like the within piece because, again, I keep saying my precinct, but I have a lot of people in Hyannis in the very thick of it, a lot of working folks. And the irritation is not from within, it's from without. It's what's going on in the yards.
In the yards,
So maybe that's that's where you may have to trigger more of the special permit if you're going to be doing, if you're going to be adding storage, if you're going to be adding vehicles, more driveway surfaces, that kind of thing. I drove by one the other day, and the entire, there's a driveway, and then it was all gravel on one side up to the fence, and there were 6 vans pulled in. It was very neat, but what's that? It's so hard. It's really so hard.
But the way this reads right now, you could have, because dwelling unit is the structure, right, Jim?
Yes.
So you could essentially have a home occupation that is within and one that is outside, but only one's operating in the structure, the other's just on the parcel. That's how I read it, but I don't.
I would say to that, even if it is just like a landscaper that is all outside, I think it's kind of inferred or implied that they're going to be doing some billing, paperwork, estimating, marketing within, in a home office type thing. I think that's kind of assumed. And I think for any small business, that is a norm. You know what I mean?
So then are we limiting the example I said before, a cleaning gal who does her books there, but, only has one car and it's her personal car and everything else, and then her husband maybe is a landscaper and has a landscape trailer outside. Are we right now we would be limiting that. That wouldn't be allowed, right? And do we want that to be able to be considered on a special permit basis?
I do. I want
too.
that to be
Yeah.
considered because I think that's the norm.
Yeah.
I think the idea that there aren't 2 adults working in a household is not accurate. I think in this day and age, most households, there are 2 adults working.
But we don't want a stonemason company and a landscaping company both there, and that's where I think it should go to the board for
I agree.
Allow your
on a
review.
case-by-case basis.
I agree. If you do allow more than one, it would be with special permit. Let
Yes.
ZBA determine if it's high impact or low,
Okay, so this.
given the context that it's going to be in, because we keep talking about, is it on a quarter acre in Hyannis where it's densely populated, or is it on 3
5 acres in the mills where the landscape has a barn in the back and
So I
the
would leave it up to
cleaning gal
the
has the
judgment,
side of the garage.
case by case.
So then this is okay, because this is, under this paragraph, it's by right. So we're saying by right, someone inside the dwelling, I think everybody agrees that is not going to impact the neighborhood in an adverse way. So are people okay now with number 1?
I am. I would just, I think part of this process should include like an informational packet for an applicant that says, hey, if you do want to
yeah.
potentially operate 2, then you simply need to file an application with the ZBA. Yeah.
Right, okay. Everyone take a look at number 2 there.
Actually, can I ask
What
Jim?
is it, Chris?
If I can ask him, by filing to the ZBA, what kind of consequences? Is there a filing fee and an application? I'm just trying to think, what is the consequence for going for this special permit?
Time and money. So yes, if you come in and you're seeking a second home occupation, and if this were to pass, the second home occupation would require a special permit to the Zoning Board of Appeals. You would need to file for an application fee, which could range around $150 or so dollars, or slightly more. And obviously things like stamps. So it's small dollars, but they all add up. And then, it's 2 weeks in the paper, so really 3 weeks overall. So we're talking about a month before you get in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And, they may need additional information, what have you, so it's not a sure thing, it's a month's time.
But on a normal course of action or a normal case, it's not going to trigger the engaging an attorney or an engineer or whatever, but it could.
It could, yeah, you're not certain of that. It depends on, honestly, how savvy or informed the individual is that's coming forward on their business and how prepared they are to speak to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I mean, we always, whenever anyone comes into our office and says they need to file and apply and come before the Zoning Board of Appeals, we always recommend they speak to a land use attorney for that matter, or an engineer, depending on the circumstances. So yes, and those fees I'm sure are not cheap. I haven't looked at those recently, but those will definitely add up quickly.
No, that's a good point. That's why I really like what Steve said. And, I watched Jake's ZBA last night, and we had evidence of that. If you're unprepared and kind of don't know what you're up to, and you don't have an attorney, it gets to be difficult. But if we take Steve's suggestion, which is a great one, and we have a good booklet that goes along with this, because we should be doing everything we can to drive down the costs of our residents to do anything in this town.
Mm-hmm.
That should always be an overarching goal. Because you're right, you get into the attorneys, you're thousands, literally thousands, okay? So I think, that would be something, this pamphlet would allow people to understand the process better and be able to come in and speak for themselves. I mean, if they're running a business, they're probably pretty savvy on how to do things, right? If you're taking on that challenge. And we should not make, the ZBA overly complicated for this. I don't know, what do you see people, Jake?
Yeah, we want to be supportive of business. I think that's been a mantra of town council for quite a long time, to make Barnstable business friendly. So, and maybe it's sort of, with Jim's discretion, that there's someone in planning that is a helper in this. I think at one point we had a economic development business person 10 years ago or something. But maybe that there's someone in there that can, help give people guidance. They can't be a lawyer, they can't be, they're not going to give it all, but at least guide them to say, yeah, this is possible, and here's your path, go. Because otherwise it's very intimidating for someone trying to start a business to.
Yep, and we do have a coordinator that does assist. Anybody who comes in, we have them sit down and talk to them about the process. And people, to be honest with you, a lot of people are, excited about it, but, get nervous about, the unknown. And so we try and walk them through as best as possible. But there's a lot of just things you need, administrative things you need to start a business and to come forward with all the proper information. So, and going before the Zoning Board of Appeals is certainly something novel for a lot of folks.
Yeah, and I also think it acts as a speed bump, and sometimes speed bumps are good, just to give people that extra time to be sure, we're getting it right, so we don't have some of the results we see out there right now. So, okay.
So on number 2, I would just question, do we need to remove principal in the last line?
Yeah, I don't think that word is needed.
I agree, I think it's superfluous.
Subordinate to the residential use of the premises.
Anyone have a problem with that? Okay, we're getting rid of that then. And I'm assuming, Jim, you're the...
Yeah, I'll be note-taking, and we'll review each of these with the internal team too, to give you any response if we say, this word can't possibly be removed because of X, Y, Z. We'll report back. But yes, I am taking notes, and our building commissioner.
I know, I see that Brian Florence has arrived.
Right.
So do we want to just pause right here? And maybe, Brian, you could, because you only had 3 of us that came to watch your process. So maybe Jim has explained that you provided this. So if you could come up and walk us through your process, and I explained to folks as we were going through the process, that is why this is so detailed, because you use this to justify your decisions. Okay?
That's great. Thank you, members of the committee and Councilor Lucky as chairman. How would you like to start? That's correct. The process we use for, well, let me back up a bit. We conduct every week, we conduct zoning reviews of home occupations and business licenses that the clerk regulates, even though we're not required to do that. We do it as a courtesy both to the clerk and our citizens. For example, if somebody applies for the process that the clerk uses is a DBA process. It's Mass General Law, Chapter 110, Section 5. And what it says is if you're going to operate in Barnstable without using your name or the name of your business, in other words, as a DBA, then you have to register with the town. And the purpose of that is to keep track of who's doing business in town.
Let me just, you say register with the town. Is that a town clerk function or you function?
It's a town clerk function.
So register with the town, nothing's happened yet. Is that step one? You're just registering?
Yep. So let's say you open a cleaning business or a landscaping business, and you are doing it as Barnstable Landscaping as opposed to using your name, or Barnstable Landscaping as opposed to using VP Incorporated. Then you have to register with the town under Mass General Law 110 Section 5 to let the clerk know and let the town know who it is doing business under a name other than their own. So that's a DBA. We're not required to review those, but when I came to Barnstable, the clerk and I agreed that it was in everybody's best interest, including the applicants, to have a zoning review, because it wouldn't be beneficial to anyone if they got a DBA from the clerk. We call it a business license here. If you got a DBA through the clerk, open their business, and then the building commissioner found that it was not lawful in that zoning district. So we do a zoning review. It's more of a courtesy, but we do it. And we have issued and denied home occupations and told the clerk that they could issue or deny this business license based on our review. I think technically if the clerk wanted to, and I said that that's not a zoning use, it's not a use allowed in that zoning district, I think that technically the clerk could probably issue the business license anyway, because it doesn't require a zoning review under that general law. But we've not had any problems with it.
Can we be more restrictive than the general law, Brian?
That's a legal question. I don't know. That you have to ask.
Because I think we want zoning review. I think that's why we're all here at this juncture, that we've had difficulties within our residential neighborhoods.
Not through that process. I've never had a problem with that issue. So we do review the business licenses. We do it every Friday. You saw us doing it when you came to our Friday meeting. So it's not a problem. I would not recommend you do anything with it. But if you are going to do something with the general law, you're going to want to talk to the town attorney's office. Okay?
But I just want to be clear on this. So the general law doesn't say, what if a business guy said, I'm not doing that zoning stuff, that's not in the general law?
Most likely what will happen is he's going to go try to get a checkbook somewhere, and the bank is going to say, nope, go get us a zoning sign-off.
Why would the bank say that?
I don't know. You'll have to ask the bank.
Does the bank know that your process? No, I'm serious. I'm being serious.
I'm not being flip with you. I'm saying I don't know. The bank has their processes. The clerk has their processes. My process is really just zoning. And looking at a zoning review under Mass General Law, Chapter 110, Section 5, is a courtesy I do. I don't know all the answers to what, why, or where, or how those processes work. And some of it even has to do with the Secretary of State. But I do know that we do them every week. I've never seen a business come through town that hasn't done this with us. And if you can find one, I'd be happy to have a conversation with them, but I don't know of any.
Okay. Well, we were just before you came in, we were talking about maybe producing a brochure or a pamphlet to make sure this is very clear to people so they don't have to engage an attorney to get through this process. So it sounds like people know that their first stop is the town clerk. And then the town clerk says,
Okay, so we're talking for the business license.
Right.
You're not talking about home occupations right now. You're talking about business license regulated through MGL 110.5. Yes, they know that the first stop, if they're gonna do a DBA, is to go through the town clerk. I would
Okay.
imagine, right? Because that's how we find them. And you mentioned something, Councilor Ludke, that they shouldn't have to come with an attorney. There were no attorneys at our zoning review. When you folks came in and did a Zoom video conference with us, there were no attorneys there. It was just us meeting with the citizens.
no, we were talking about, before you came, we were talking about if we got to the special permit with the ZBA aspect.
Oh, yeah.
We
yeah.
were talking other things before you arrived, so
Sure. Sorry, I missed it.
that's fine. Now I'm just trying to understand, because we did talk about this pamphlet, how people know what they're doing right now, and
I think the pamphlet's a great idea. We did that with planning and development when it came to restaurants, opening a restaurant, going from an existing restaurant to a new restaurant under a different ownership even. There's a lot of regulatory issues that get triggered from that. So we created, it was actually economic development, Mike, I forget the gentleman's name. Toronto, yes. Yeah. Travato. Yeah. Mike wanted to see something for restaurateurs because he was getting a lot of, not complaints, but a lot of feedback from restaurateurs saying, hey, we don't know all these regulations are out there. So not only did we create the brochure, but we created a process in site plan review where they're welcome to come in and have a conversation at site plan. It's unofficial. They don't have to be there. We can't force them. We can't make them fill out an application or pay the fee, but we're happy to have all the regulators in place at once to have that conversation with them. So, and we do the same thing in this process with home occupation and business licenses. As you've seen from what I wrote here, if something else is triggered, if I'm looking at something and it goes beyond what I should or shouldn't be issuing as a building commissioner, I'll refer that to other people, conservation, health department, and those sorts of things. So I'm sorry to have gotten off track, but it's a pretty thorough process. Would you like to talk, we talked about the 110 stuff. Would you like to talk about the home occupations itself?
Sorry. But before we do, on the
no,
one,
everybody, please jump in and ask questions, because we really need to learn from Brian. So please,
Absolutely.
everybody, feel free.
the 110.5 business license, the process is to go to the town clerk, register with the town clerk. But on the sheet provided under the section application, it says business license applications are entered into the town's permitting system by the applicant. Is that different than what you just described with the town clerk?
No, and it's not the full story either. A lot of so if you enter a building permit application, a licensing application, a home occ all those things are entered by the applicant. If you want something from the town, you fill out an application and you go in and you pay a fee or otherwise. There are times when some of our folks they're not computer literate, so we will enter it for them, but by and large, they do their own, they enter the application, yes.
And is that different or the same to what you just described with going to the town clerk and registering with the town clerk?
It's the same,
It's the same.
yeah.
Okay.
We're talking the same process.
And then the other thing, I know I brought this up before, but I just, it always just, it feels odd to me. This is triggered by wanting to obtain a DBA certificate. But that's one path to operating a business. Another path to operating a business is just operating under your business's name. So not all businesses need a DBA.
That's correct.
So for a business that wants to operate in town that doesn't need a DBA, is it the same process?
It is. I have not, like I said earlier, I've not run into anybody that's operating a new business in Barnstable that doesn't come through this process. It may happen. I think it's an outlier rather than the majority by far. So,
Okay.
yeah, we get people. It's kind of a sore spot for me because it adds a tremendous workload to us. We're constantly reviewing incorporations and LLCs and things like that. But it's what I agreed to do with the town clerk, and we do it every week.
Okay, great, appreciate that.
Okay, keep going, Brian.
Okay, so the next thing we do is HOMOCs, and it's the same thing. HOMOC, we do a review to make sure that the use being proposed is allowed in the zoning district. And we use, as you said in the very beginning, Councilor Lutke, we use the home occupation restrictions and limits section of that ordinance to ask questions in our system. And we literally base the application on those restrictions. So while I'm on the subject, Councilor Crocker and Chairman Dewey, if you guys would like, you're welcome and invited to come this Friday, tomorrow, any Friday, and see the process. I encourage you to do it because it's pretty eye-opening when you realize that a lot of the stuff you've heard in the public, that nobody's looking at this stuff, it really isn't true. It's very well vetted. So that's the home occupation stuff. I know that Director Kupfer had said that there were some very specific things that you were interested in hearing from me about, and I had sent out a red line version of those. Is that something you'd like to touch on? I mean, I could do that pretty quickly.
Yes, why don't we do that?
Okay.
So these are the questions that you had from the last meeting, and I forwarded those to Brian, and Brian had an opportunity to respond to those, so we could have that dialogue here today, if you like.
And I did it in
Great.
email last week, so you would have some time to digest it. The definition of commercial vehicle as defined by the state, can this be adjusted to not treat small vehicles the same? I'm going to kind of defer to the town attorney on that. Karen had written the commercial vehicle provisions that we have now. The 240-46 provisions are pretty clear. They say one commercial vehicle not to exceed 1 ton and a trailer with no more than 20 feet in length and four tires on it. It got written a little differently. So the question was, can this be adjusted to not treat small vehicles the same? And I had said down at the bottom of my comments there, for enforcement purposes, it's easy enough for us to distinguish between a truck and a sedan. And I suppose it'd be worth asking Karen if the ordinance could eliminate the term commercial vehicles. But I put a caution there. It's not just trucks that are potentially a problem. If you have a cleaning company, for example, it gets very successful. It's successful companies that are the problem. You guy starts out with a truck and a landscape trailer and mows lawns for a while. He's fine. He doesn't bother anybody until he gets 2 trucks and 2 trailers and 3 trucks and 3 trailers, that sort of thing. Well, the same thing would go for a sedan. It's not a bother to anybody to have a Barnstable maids or Barnstable house cleaning car in their yard. But if they get very successful and they have 2 and then 3 and then 4. So I don't know that defining the vehicle type is really what you're shooting for as opposed to quantity, but I leave that up to you folks.
Well, that was a big topic of conversation, is what the vehicle looks like, because they come in such different shapes and sizes. I did just pull up the, because on page 5, under definitions, it mentions commercial vehicle is any vehicle that meets the criteria in the 540 CMR 2.05 subsection 3. So I just pulled that up, was looking at it. It's got some interesting stuff. I mean, it's basically any vehicle with a curb weight of 6,000 pounds or more, any vehicle with 5 or more wheels on the ground. It also mentions pickup trucks or cargo vans owned by a partnership, trust, or corporation. Any that are used to transport tools, supplies, materials, equipment from a job site, any vehicle that has a business advertisement or business markings, any vehicle hired for the use of a plow. So it makes sense that these definitions are what we're using to classify as a commercial vehicle, because that's the kind of stuff we're trying to avoid. It makes, I mean, especially where it's based on either the weight or the number of tires. Numbers of tires is a good one, because if you have like a dually, like a pickup truck that's a dually, that means it's a big one, you know? So.
Yeah, but I'm kind of picking up on Brian said. I think quantity is, because I almost don't have a problem, I don't know what the rest of you feel, with kind of almost any vehicle. Like you said, the landscape guy who starts with a pickup truck and a trailer, all of that is confined in his trailer and it sits there nicely. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think anybody would. But it's when you start getting all sorts of extraneous things.
Yeah, and if you
The
think
number,
about it,
yeah.
Mr. Robichaud, Chairman Robichaud, the F-350, which is allowed under the regulation as a one-ton, that has 6 tires.
Yeah,
So-
yeah,
So you gotta be,
right, right. Yeah, I mean, even if, the number absolutely is the most important thing, no question about it. But you could get into a situation where you have one vehicle that's just a beast of a vehicle that's,
Well, as I said last time, I know during the school year, I see them, school buses,
yeah,
and I don't have a
Right.
problem with that either, because,
No,
off
definitely
they go
not.
from their house. I mean, that's an early call, early wake-up for those school bus drivers.
for sure.
And I don't think I've heard any, and I know they're in my precinct too. I've seen them, and I haven't heard any, have you heard complaints about school buses?
not one.
So that's why, I'm not,
One important note, though, to make here, I mean, the school bus is, one of those extreme circumstances of a certain type of commercial vehicle. But again, for a home occupation, these commercial vehicles must be tied to the home occupation itself. I mean, that's that second conversation that we will have at some point about whether or not we want to regulate specifically commercial vehicles in general. And this group decided to wait until after we finalize this conversation first.
well, that's a good point, and that makes that school bus a different animal. That, because as you said, that's not their occupation. That's the home occupation.
That's along the lines of the plumber, the HVAC tech that works for a company, and the company's
Exactly.
allowing them that take-home vehicle.
And they take home the vehicle,
Yeah.
yeah.
Tow truck operators, the list
Yeah.
goes on. There's a lot
Lot
of
of layers to
people
this,
that
yeah.
use the work vehicle to travel back and forth from home.
So then I like what Steve read. I think, again, we shouldn't limit it particularly. Are people okay with that definition? I mean, what we have in
It's
there?
logical.
I think it's something someone can look up. I mean, it's very objective, so I think that's good.
Yeah,
But we
I don't-
have to
I
talk,
don't- I don't
that's
love-
when-
I'm sorry.
so, no, just that's when quantity, then, special permits should be in play, when the quantity, starts building.
Sure. I don't love using 540 CMR because people then assume that we're enforcing 540 CMR. We don't have any authority there. That's the registry of motor vehicles. So it's there. I understand. I don't object to it being there the way Karen wrote it. I just understanding that that's not something the definition that we don't enforce that. We enforce one-ton vehicle, which is very easy to enforce. Anything over a 350 Ford is a one-ton. Anything over 3,500 in Chevy is over 1 ton. So we can very easily pick that number out. We know what the DOT rating is for those vehicles. I don't think you want to regulate it so that if they have a plow truck on the front of it, or a plow on the front of it, they can't be in a residential, because there's too many residential houses with plows. So, again, I don't love 540 being listed there, just understand we don't regulate 540, so if you're gonna keep it listed there, there's potentially some issues there. I like the one ton, I like the number of wheels, those things are very helpful from an enforcement perspective. Are you done with that subject, that question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, Jim said they had questions on definitions such as equipment, screening, front yard, backyard, et cetera. I need more information on what you mean by equipment. If you're talking about like a Bobcat or something along those lines, the way we regulate that now is it has to be on the trailer that's allowed. So if you have a trailer, a 20-foot trailer, no more than 4 tires, you have a Bobcat, as long as it's on there, it's fine. If you have a Bobcat on your trailer and a backhoe in your yard, now you've gone off script. You're no longer compliant with the zoning ordinance. Same thing with landscaping tools. I would need some more information on what you mean by equipment.
The reason this, if you don't mind, the reason this came up is simply because the word equipment is used later on in the red line document, and it's not listed under definitions, and there are different people that may define equipment differently. So, we may want to consider adding the word equipment to our definitions. I also had the word material as something that we might want to offer what our definition is, so there's no subjective reasoning.
You will never hear me say once, please don't add a definition.
Okay.
Not
No,
once.
I think
Yeah,
we
I
ought to
figured
really
we'd be all right with that,
focus on this equipment, because that's where the
Mm.
preponderance of the complaints are,
Right.
is excess equipment and whatever you want to call them, things that, like
Plow or
a
the
plow, these
Bobcat or the snow, the
Right.
big lawnmowers.
big lawnmowers,
So, but if you
Side by
think
side,
about it,
yeah.
right, if you have one truck and one trailer, and there's something on the trailer or in the truck, that doesn't really affect the neighborhood. If you have so much stuff that it's not on your truck or on your trailer and it's spilling into the yard, that affects the neighborhood.
Hmm.
Or if you have 3 trucks and trailers and stuff on all of them, that's even worse.
so what do you do in that case, Brian?
In which case, when there's,
In that case,
yeah, so let's say you have somebody that's got 3 Bobcats and 1 truck and 1 trailer and 3 Bobcats, and they're in the yard. If we get a complaint about it, we enforce it. Tell them you can't have it, and we have, record of that taking place.
so have you had success with that?
Sure, yeah.
Where do they go with their stuff? You don't care, you don't know?
Well, I can tell you, so the guy on Lincoln Road, who apparently is back at it again, had, 6 or 8 trucks over there, a tree guy. Mowed down a bunch of the trees in his yard, put a bunch of stone in, and we issued tickets until he moved to Yarmouth. Apparently, he's back here now, so we have to start enforcement again, if we haven't already.
So when you're defining, well, we can take that back and discuss how to define things
Yeah,
like.
we need equipment, we
yeah,
need a definition
equipment.
for that, absolutely.
And as Steve mentioned, maybe materials and supplies.
Yeah.
Now when we're referring to each of these, we're putting it in the context of, for by right, that they all shall be stored in an enclosed structure. Is that something that is feasible, you think, from a?
That would mean it's like in their garage, right, or in their shed?
Where is that listed? What page?
So that's page 7 is when we refer to number 11 is when you refer to equipment, materials, supplies. For by right, mind you, we have
Yeah.
more lenient stuff later on, but so.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've always had an issue with that, only because there are folks that do a really, really good job screening items that aren't enclosed. You know what I mean? If something isn't enclosed, but they've done a wonderful job screening it, then I think we should allow that. But to Jake's point, maybe we shouldn't allow that by right. Maybe we say, in our informational packet, we list, hey, if you're gonna offer really good screening, you can go to the ZBA and they can give you a special permit for not having it closed. I feel like making everything having to be enclosed in a structure is restrictive, but.
But again, it's dealing with the different lots. Like in downtown Hyannis, it doesn't work. In the Mills, it works.
Yeah.
You're
The
not
prob-
maybe near your
The
neighbors.
problem we have is not this group, and not even our town council, we have effectively outlawed being a contractor in Barnstable. We really have. There's no place where you can have a contractor's yard. You can have a contractor's yard light by having 1 truck and 1 trailer, but there's literally no place that you can go except for the industrial district, and that is not, you don't see a lot of land for sale in the industrial district. So we've outlawed it.
Yeah.
So my opinion doesn't matter here, but I don't disagree with this idea that it can be screened. And that was the next point I had in this, under this subheading here, is that screening is subjective. So if you're going to allow more than the 1 truck and 1 trailer subject to zoning board of appeals approval and screening, I just ask that you do a good job defining screening and what's adequate. Because right now, if you look at chapter 228 in our general ordinance, you can have more than 1 vehicle in your yard unregistered, and you just have to cover it, either some greens or a tarp. And you got 5 vehicles with blue tarps on it, and or you put up a blue tarp fence in the neighborhood,
Right.
and that's a problem. So for the neighbors it is. I would recommend you're gonna do that, let's just be real clear on what you mean by screening.
Yeah, I think as you suggested, I think screening is a good, line. If you cross screening, you're into special permit. Because Steve, you're right. Some people do it beautifully. Other people say this is screened and no, not so much, right?
Right.
So I think that would be a special permit. What do you guys think? I mean, again, I have no problem with stuff inside.
Maybe Commissioner Florence has some suggestions since this is what he does. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
That's on the spot. I do everything I can not to write regulation, right? So, I mean, I have some suggestions. For example, your typical stockade fence is 6 feet. I think if you have heavy equipment that sticks up above that, maybe it should be an 8-foot fence. Screening by vegetation alone, I don't know that I would call that adequate, because unless they put really close evergreens, it's great in the summer, it's bad in the winter, you know what I mean? So, fencing makes good neighbors. You've heard that, and I think that helps, but I don't know. I leave it to you folks, the policymakers.
If you don't want to put Brian and his team in a position to have to decide if the screening is sufficient, right? We want to put that to the discretionary board.
That's why I don't
Yes,
want him dealing
right.
with screening.
Yeah.
Not that
If screening's
I think it's
necessary.
too I think it needs to go. He mentioned the word neighbors. That's where the ZBA is genius, because you have abutters that can come and comment. If you're starting to screen, neighbors should be engaged in that process.
Agreed.
And
So I
then
think.
It gives an
yeah.
easier decision for then Brian to enforce later on as
Right,
well.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say, I mean, I've seen lots of every size and shape do an effective job with screening, with evergreens that screen year-round. And, I mean, there's been, in my prior job, I was going out and seeing homeowners and seeing houses all over the Cape, and you get to see a lot of really neat things. And sometimes you'd come around a corner behind a big evergreen arborvitaes or Leland screen, you'd go, oh my gosh, this is back here? I had no idea. You drive by it 100 times, you have no idea
Yeah.
what's back there. So it can be done very effectively. I just wanted to put an idea out there. I can't help but look at this from the perspective of like the marketing side and the consumer side, meaning what I would love to see is if each one of these had, I love colors, right? So you could have red says by right. Okay, so red is by right. So here's what's allowed by right. All materials and equipment shall be stored in an enclosed structure or in a commercial vehicle. Then below that, in another color, available by special permit, screening. And then you talk about screening. So if I'm an applicant, I can see very clearly that I have two paths here. If I want to screen with vegetation, then I know that I'm going to go see Jake and his board. Because some people may just read what's permitted, and it may not ever trigger in their brain that I have another path. You know what I mean? So I know that legal probably doesn't like to organize it that way, but that's a way to organize it so that it's more understandable, digestible for the applicant.
I would say green is the go. Green is the
Yeah, I
as of
mean,
right.
maybe we should do like blue and purple. I don't know. But
We can absolutely put that one pager together. Once you guys
Yeah.
nail down the ordinance itself, we
Okay.
can absolutely
Well-
do that. We do dashboards and red,
Since we're
green,
talking
yellow.
about screening,
yeah.
perhaps we could take a slight detour and bring up the map of the setbacks and have Brian talk about that. And Brian, I won't mention addresses, but I think you'll know what I'm talking about. In my precinct, there's two roads that are very close together, and the houses front on both roads. So when you tell the guy, you can do everything in your backyard, that front's on a different road than the address, and the neighbors are irate, because if you drive by there, that entire backyard looks like a contractor's yard, and it's not screened at all. It's wide open. So that's why I brought this up. It's not going to be out in the mills, but in Hyannis, we're so tight. And, on these particular two roads, you drive down the road and all of a sudden you got the front of a house, then you got the back of a house. So that's why we wanted to talk about defining, this maybe a little bit better to deal with circumstances like that.
Sure. I purposely didn't put the side street in there because there's so many scenarios you can put in there.
Yeah.
We have properties that are surrounded by 4 streets. We have properties that are in a triangle. So I just did that as a basic communication. I don't mind how you regulate it. I can enforce whatever you give us. So,
Well, do you have some suggestions? You know, you deal with the complaints. I mean, and, you know, I know we've talked about this particular one, you know, that I'm not giving the address for, but it continues to be an irritant because the backyard is kind of the front yard now, and,
yeah, so if it
Yeah.
falls under the current regulations and it's enforceable, if you get it to us, we will get out there and see what we can do to enforce it. I would say for new permits that come, because if this is grandfathered use, we can't really do much about it. But if it's a new use coming in and somebody's coming in, registering their home occupation, we can certainly take the new regulations and apply them. Say, you need to screen from all streetways. And I mean, if you're going to have a home occupation, you're going to run a landscaping business or excavating business or something that requires multiple vehicles, you'll need to screen that from every roadway.
well,
public way.
maybe this falls into the special permit thing because we're all talking screening.
Sure.
And that way, you know, the ZBA would see the unique, because you're right, triangles, all sorts of shapes. So I've got it in my backyard, I'm okay. Well, no, it's not okay at all. So maybe it goes back to what we just talked about, that would solve this problem, was that screening kicks you to the ZBA, and you're going to have to talk about all sides.
Screening to increase beyond what's allowed as of right? Because if you're not going to make somebody go to the zoning board for putting up a fence, right? Just
No, this is for home occupations where their things are not stored inside. Didn't we just say
right.
that
Yeah, so
if
things
you're
that go
not
beyond.
inside? If
Okay,
you're outside in the
Right.
yard, you're
understood.
going to go to the ZBA, and you're going to have to talk about how your yards line up, and then that way we'll handle the unique situations because the lots will have to be shown for the
Yeah.
permit.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes
So
sense.
just real quick to further that discussion. So again, looking back at that number 11 on page 7, when we talk about supplies, materials, equipment associated with home occupation shall be stored in an enclosed structure or in or on a commercial vehicle or trailer allowed on the premises under this section, and shall not be visible, or I guess maybe it's a secondary or an additional statement that none of which shall be visible from a public way, because I think that's important. And but Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. So we have like a front yard or rear yard, and I know Councilor Ludke's example she's referring to, but that's probably somewhat rare circumstance. I don't think anything captures if someone has something in their they're doing something in their backyard that is not visible from a public way, and you have no way of providing evidence of somebody doing something in their backyard. I don't think any of this, I don't think you would be able to go and say, hey, what you got back there? It needs to be, I think your enforcement's coming from the public view, right?
Yeah, for the most part. So let's say you're the neighbor and you're the one that called it in. It's lawful for me to go to your property and stand on your deck or look out your second floor window at the problem you're seeing. But if it's just hearsay, this guy's creating a problem or this woman's creating a problem, go look. If we're subject to probable cause, rights of entry rules and regulations. We don't have just unfettered authority to go on people's property. So you're 100% right that if it's not a visible thing and it's not anything we can confirm, we can't enforce. But that's not that often.
One question on maybe another definition, enclosed structure. So if someone has a temporary structure, would that, like, again, maybe we need to have a definition here, because like a hoop house, right, would be a temporary structure. So if someone sets that up, are they in the?
Director Kupfer is going to be giving you folks an accessory structures thing, and you can tie it right into that.
Okay.
We wrote that a long time ago, and it's just been waiting to see the light. But you can Yeah, if you want to define it as
I
an
mean, I just don't,
accessory
like-
structure.
Again, like, is it just a roof over, like a Ford poster with a roof? Is that a structure? It's in there, okay, it's fine. Or is it a fully enclosed, all four sides, you know, again, I'm
So
just
as to
trying
not be
to.
visible from the road, so you take
Yeah.
your carport and wrap blue tarps around the walls.
Exactly, yeah.
I have a scenario. What if you have fencing up, but you're running a pressure washer? So that's running for hours or something like that.
You're talking about noise.
Noise,
Yeah.
that's different.
We only have one regulation for noise, and it pertains to music.
Yeah, and
Chapter
again,
133.
so
sorry.
this wouldn't refer to you doing the act of your business. This is your home occupation headquarters, essentially. So if you're saying that there's a pressure washer business you own and operate, that would be different. That wouldn't be caught into this. I mean, it would be, you need to store your pressure washer in an enclosed structure, essentially, not while it's being operated, though.
I do have an example that may be helpful for you, though. Let's say somebody was an artist and they were welding, and the smoke and the light from the welding company, the business, was going across into people's homes, into the yards. So if you look at the preamble to zoning, it says not offensive noise, noxious gases, undue lights. It has those qualities in there. So if somebody is welding, we had a guy who makes knives. He's a blacksmith, and he makes knives in his garage. We got complaints that there was a tremendous amount of noise, which we didn't enforce, but the light and the smoke coming from his charcoal forge, we did enforce, and he did what he was supposed to do. He pulled it inside, he put ventilation in, and he makes his noise and his smoke and light in his garage now. So, sure. Would you like me to go through the bullet points on this document and just breeze through them real quick? And that's
Yes,
kinda-
why don't you? Because again, two of us here did not go and watch your process, so that would be helpful.
Okay, do you want to do it with on the screen? Or I can do it by this piece of paper here. So, as I said, when I first came, the home occupations and business licenses are reviewed every Friday, and the participants of that are me, as a zoning enforcement officer, Jeff Carter, our deputy director of inspectional services, and Maggie, who is our permit coordinator and site plan review coordinator. If we identify something that needs to be referred out to another agency, let's say, for example, somebody was baking cupcakes in their home, we would refer that over to the health department. We'd also put restrictions on it, which I'll talk about in a moment. So those are the participants. The applications, home occupation, you'll find that regulation under 24046. And then business license, as we talked about already, is under Mass General Law 110.5. Applications that trigger this type of review, those are home occupations, business licenses, and building permits. You probably noticed when you were reviewing our process that there were a couple of building permits that came up. And so that's an additional process that gets triggered, that triggers this review. So the zoning reviews they particularly take place on Fridays. We look for the zoning district, the water protection overlay district, the type of use that's being proposed, and the description of the proposed use. If a description comes in and it's vague, we kick it back for more explanation. Yes.
Do you ever, are you welcome to have the actual applicants there, or they're not welcome?
We don't need them. It's really an administrative function. If we did need to communicate with the applicant, we do. I'll call them, Maggie will call them, we'll have a conversation. We don't really need them to see how the sausage is made. It's
Do you
just
call them during the review process, or after you just take a note or something?
after we take a note, yeah.
All right.
So if we need more explanation, usually that's done, remember, they submit an application to us. If the application is light, we have them expound on what it is they're trying to tell us. So, for example, using the baker, if the baker says, I'm going to be baking cupcakes in my kitchen, we want to know, okay, are you going to have people come to the house? Are you selling this product from the house? Will you have delivery trucks dropping things off and picking things up? Will, the Wonder Bread truck come and pick up 16 dozen cupcakes and bring them to wholesale? So we want to know that information, and typically it's just an administrative function to get him to go in to the application and complete it, because you can tell us anything you want. Unless you write it down, we can't enforce it.
So just one follow-up, and because I have a building permit open, and I find it very helpful because you go back and forth. And if you guys have a question for me, it pops up in my email, and then I go and I upload a document. So it's a similar thing that you have a go back and forth with these folks, and then when you feel like they're ready, then you do the review.
That's the exact process. You're 100% right.
Okay, then that's a
Yeah.
very good process.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, as I said, business licenses or applications for a business license that don't comply with zoning, they're denied. They'll either get moved to site plan review or referred to a multi-member board such as the Zoning Board of Appeals or the Planning Board or Concom or Historic District, many of those things. Our approvals, business licenses oh, wait a minute, I missed a whole half of a sheet here. I would ask you in your.
Brian, can I interrupt you again?
Yeah.
What you just said is kind of the heart of why we're here, I think, a big piece. They do not comply with zoning ordinance, because you got the ZBA there, site plan review. Can you give an example of maybe one recently that came through that you had to kick out, or? I mean, that's so broad, it's such a broad statement there.
Given an opportunity, I could give you dozens of them, but let me see.
Because we're trying to put certain triggers in.
Here's one. I don't know that it actually came through this process, although I think it did. If you go down Yarmouth Road, Willow Street, and you see the fenced-in area that had a bunch of homes on it, and those homes were torn down, and they put boat storage in there.
Oh, yes.
We caught them through this process and said, you need to go to site plan review.
What do you mean you caught them?
Well, they were referred to a multi-member board.
Oh, so they came through this process?
Yeah.
And you
But
said,
they didn't come, it was an enforcement action that brought them to you, is what?
Yeah, that's
no,
right.
no, I'm saying, did they apply for a business license?
That's what got it. Yep. It was the business license that started it.
But
it
when
got
you
picked
just
up
said
during-
you caught them, at what stage did you catch them? After they'd already demolished everything, or, I mean?
Yeah, when that came through for a business license, I said, well, we have a bunch of demolitions for house demos here. What's the fence doing there? Why is there stone? Why is there boats in that yard if they haven't done this process already? So they were caught and had to go through the permitting process. We sent it to site plan review. Did it come to you? Yeah.
No,
So
it's not come to us yet.
went through site plan review. So when we catch something, that's what happens. It gets referred out, whether it's site plan review, zoning board, planning board, Concom.
And at site plan review, we'll review zoning together, and if it's an allowed use, then great, and for that one, it wasn't allowed use, but if it triggers zoning board, then it says, it could be approvable based on going to whichever board, which would then send it to Jake or Steve or whomever.
But that was the point of my inviting you to look at our process, because we do this already. It's not this
But
willy-nilly.
we're gonna put some initial triggers, like we just said, screening.
Sure,
That's an automatic trigger to the ZBA.
sure.
But so that one triggered there, and then where'd it go? Because it never came to the ZBA, it went to,
It was an as-of-right use.
so just,
Just, how there's car lots
It
all
just-
up and down the street?
yeah.
It's a
So it came
retail-
back to you with proper permitting and you approved it
That's right.
administratively?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing I jumped over, and I didn't mean to, I would like to talk about this section right here. This section, it's the restrictions part of so it's 240-46. What's the subsection, Jim? Do you know offhand?
I think 46 is the subject.
Okay. It would be very helpful as your zoning enforcement officer if we took subjectiveness out of this list of restrictions and maybe just found a different word. So it's objective to say that the activity must be conducted by residents of the dwelling. I can figure that out. That's easy for me to do. subjective would be something like may not, the use may not be objectionable or detrimental to the neighborhood. You got people in neighborhoods that want to live next to a graveyard. They don't want to hear anything except birds chirping. And then you have others that don't mind the fact that, you know, you got a welder over there making a bunch of noise and smoke. And so it would be good if you could take the subjective ones there and try to tighten those up. And then the subjective, objective ones, traffic generated shall not be more disruptive to the neighborhood than normal residential district traffic. I mean, these days you see Amazon come through the neighborhood 5 times a day. You see UPS rolling through, the postal trucks, you know what I mean, garbage trucks, tree trucks, you name it. It would be helpful if you could try to tighten those subjective, objective things up, but especially the subjective. Okay? So I appreciate if you look at those. And then getting down to the last few things. So under the approvals heading, business licenses that comply with zoning are given a business license by the town clerk. Home occupations that comply with zoning are given a certificate of registration along with their business and license, and both of them get whatever the restrictions are that apply. You may not use more than 200 square feet of your property. You may not exceed 200 square feet in an accessory building. You may not store materials outside. We'll say very specifically, this is not a contractor's yard. You may have one vehicle, one trailer, no outdoor storage of materials. So we put a lot of restrictions on that, and we take the restrictions right out of the ordinance. The zoning officer identifies and lists any conditions for approvals, and that's the restrictions part I was just talking about. Rejected applications, business license and home occupations don't comply with zoning, but might be able to comply if they modify their plans. We'll give them options to do so. That's the back and forth in the system that you talked about a moment ago, Councilor Ludke, where if we find something, identify something that needs to be addressed, we'll send it out. You get an email and you come back. So we try to give them their options to do that. And we try to work with applicants to help them get to an approved condition. But those that simply can't get there, we're going to refer out to a multi-member board.
Now, what's your review process? Because I've seen a lot of the other towns looking at them, like they have an annual fee and kind of an annual check-in, you know? Do you have anything like that, or, you know, off you go?
So for the individual or for the regulation itself?
For the individual, they've got their home occupation and off they go. Do they have any kind of annual review, annual submission, any? Because I have heard from people that, you know, it's a tough for you to go out and inspect a lot of these because it requires overtime. I'm just trying to get to some revenue that could support some of the enforcement. I'm wondering, because I did see it in so many other towns, like an annual re-upping, if you will.
Yeah.
Do we have anything like that, or
That's
it's one and done?
That's a really good question. We don't. In fact, before I came to Barnstable, the only way you could find if a piece of property had a home occupation is to go literally ask for the folder and look in it. There was no way to get a report or try to understand who had home occupations, what they were, and where they were in town. Several years ago, Maggie and I, we put this process in, we put the application in, so into the OpenGov, and for both business home and home occupations, building permits were already there. And so now we are able to keep and track and understand what we're doing, and we're improving that as we go. But there's no annual review. We had proposed a license scheme, if you will, in this home occupation regulation, and I still suggest it's a good idea. It's a good idea for a lot of reasons. Number one, we can find out, we have properties that have 5 home occupations associated with them, and none of them are still existing, or one of them is existing, and the others have gone by because the business stopped for whatever reason. It would be good to know that the ones that are done are cleared out, and we can do that with an annual review.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. I don't know if other people have looked. I really like that a lot of towns have adopted that. And it's a minimal fee. It's like $25. But that would be enough for Brian to pay some of his overtime, because again, he usually needs to send somebody out at odd hours when, there's stuff going on.
Well, I don't want to suggest that, so overtime is the exception rather than the rule. I have never not authorized it, and my inspectors are very good about telling me when they need it. So the narrative you hear out in the community that nothing's being done because it happens after hours, it's just not true. And I'm sure our finance director will be happy to tell you that. We pay overtime for that stuff. My request for funding behind the licensing part of it is twofold. It is for enforcement, it's for staffing to do that, and also for the equipment needed to do it. We need to buy a machine that prints out licenses and that sort of thing. I know Mr. Robichaud was not a fan of that at the planning board, but it's something that would be a helpful tool to us for enforcement.
I'm coming around. This isn't a business license? You're talking about a home occupation license?
Right.
Okay, which would be in addition to a business license?
Right.
Okay, and the conversation that just took place is just kind of about how a renewal would take place and what it would cost and all that good stuff. And the renewal, you see as an opportunity to take another look at the site, maybe have someone do a drive-by to make sure that they're in compliance.
Yep.
Look to see if there was complaints,
Right.
and all that. Yeah, I just, the aspect that I really did not like would be the just harsh, brutal reality of somebody trying to earn a living, basically learning that they are not doing something properly and something's not in place, and your renewal application has been denied. You know what I mean? So I wanted to see like you've got a 6-month probation.
Oh, sure.
Really, really gentle, really easy. Let's make it a partnership. Let's work with them. If they're not in compliance, what can we do to help them? Just being as kind and gentle as possible with that, and not being too
Yeah.
strict if we've got somebody that is not in compliance.
I challenge you to talk to anybody that I've enforced against, and you will hear that I'm fair.
I have heard that for sure.
We always give people time to correct. We give them options to correct. But if you wanted, as this committee wanted to codify that, I have no issue with that.
Yeah, I think
For
it
a
might be a
second,
more
third strike, yeah.
proactive. Right now, you're very reactive. As we know, the town is complaint-based, which I've always hated. It pits neighbor against neighbor and creates ugly situations. So if we had this, and I like what Steve said, that, the gentle approach, because that's what it should be. Again, overarching, we're trying to allow people to pursue businesses and make money, okay? So, but I think it might be nice, and there's some good examples already out there in other municipalities that we could just steal from and take a look at those and adjust them. But if that sounds like something you've thought about too.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think about, you brought to the council about the apartments, the fee went up there because you want to do the annual inspections. So I'm kind of, thinking this too, this is an opportunity to, take the burden off the neighbors, I think, a little bit.
What's the
I'm on
current fee
board.
structure right now for the licensing?
So I don't know what the clerk charges for a business license. I think home occupation's $35 or something. I don't know, so don't quote me.
Jim, do you
on
know the
that.
business license fee?
I do not know.
And would you-
I'm sure we could look it up.
Would
though.
you think annual review or every 2 years or every 3 years?
I like annual only because I know it's a little extra work on our end, but the thing I like about it is so many of these things fall off year over year. The attrition rate is huge, but, and then people move. A lot of the businesses start up in rentals. We have Cape Crossroads, there's got to be 30 businesses in there, but those folks aren't there next year, you know what I mean? So that apartment is still listed as a home
Have you given thought to the number in terms of the initial home occupation license and then the renewal cost?
We're talking about adding a staff member for enforcement, so it's not insignificant, but we have, I forget, I need to look. We do probably 500 business licenses a year, somewhere in that vicinity.
And just to follow up, $40 for every 4 years, a business certificate.
That's for the Mass General Law 110, Section 5, the town
Oh, yeah.
clerks.
Business.
That revenue does not go to the building division.
So have you, I know.
But then does
Marcia-
the home occ have a fee as well? As a one-time fee?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in the I want to say
$125?
$35
Oh, is it
or
35?
something like that.
And do you have a fee in mind for the annual review? Or have you thought,
For the
put some
renewal?
thought to
I
that?
think what I'd like to do is, we're coming before the town council this fall with fee recommendations. I've been waiting to see if a license provision was going to be added to this before I can start thinking about what I need for staffing. And if I had to guess, I would figure one staff, and then there's probably 10,000 businesses in Barnstable, 8,000 businesses in Barnstable. You divide that one staff member up by that many businesses, and that's what you get. So it probably won't change much, is what I'm telling you.
I do like the idea of an annual, of a home occupation review, but perhaps maybe you can lessen the workload if it wasn't annual, if it was a 2-year, or not the frequency at this time. I know that we're due to reevaluate the fee structure, so perhaps if there was a recommendation that came from this group, this committee, to the town council, that we initiate 2-year review of the home occupancy, then that can be wrapped into the upcoming fee structure.
Please don't list the fee amount, though.
What?
Please don't list the fee amount, because I need to.
No, understood.
would not
No,
do
no,
that.
I
Okay.
understand.
No.
But I'm just saying that to lighten the load, and I understand it's making another task
Yeah,
times 8,000.
Right.
So that's significant.
it is pretty significant.
So just,
We're willing to do it, though.
just to add to that, so right now in your draft, and as by right, it's every 3 years. We could reduce that if you wished. And to Brian's point about don't put the fee in the ordinance, because then we got to change the ordinance every time, as opposed to going through the fee structure, which is a somewhat easier process.
So that's everything I had on the 2 documents. One, the one I wrote for Mr. Robichaud, and then the subsequent follow-up to your questions. Do you have any other questions for me, or is
Well,
there
just
anything-
what Jim read, I have a question on that. If you do give it for 3 years, does that mean you have to start all over on year number 4?
Yeah, so if you're gonna issue a license or a registration, and you give it a sunset, and you would start over again at the end of that.
Because I would think you just issue it, and then the annual review would capture if it's still going or not. I just wonder why, and then, like I've said, if they're exactly the same or slightly, year number 4, is that working for you? This 3-year, every 3 years, that people have to come all the way through again?
Well, this is
not my-
proposed. This is what's proposed right
Oh,
now.
what do you have right now?
You guys proposed that.
What do you have now?
We have
Indefinite?
one and done, which is no
Yeah,
good for us.
No review, yeah.
All right, okay, thank you.
But Brian would recommend an annual review instead of the 3 years that we currently have in the draft. Do you think that's like I mean, does the applicant or the operator or permit holder, they have to do something, or they just pay the fee and then you guys review it internally, and then that sort of?
So in our software system, we have what's called a renewal campaign. And so those folks would just get a letter, an email saying, come on in by this date and renew your license or registration. And then we would have a list of people that didn't. And then we would be able to communicate with them through a second notice and or a visit to the site. Yeah.
But the
I'm
ones that-
okay with 2 years. I
Okay.
think 1's probably a lot. 3 is probably not enough. I think 2 years sounds like it would be.
I like 2 years.
I think 2 years. I don't think it needs to be every year. I mean, a business
Yeah,
still needs to establish and figure out its footings and stuff, and
and where is the list? Do you have to look up each property to see, or you said you created a list of these businesses. Is that accessible?
We can print a report for that. What you'll find, though, is that we only started using OpenGov to document these about 3 years ago. Prior to that, it was just done with a piece of paper that got put in a file. So you'd have to go to I'd have to know that there was a complaint, go in the file and look and see if there was a home occupation there. I can give you the report for the last 3 years or so that we've been doing it, yes. But I couldn't
think-
give you the list of $8,000 or $10,000 businesses, or 10,000 businesses we have in town.
They're all
don't know.
active.
and also they're all active. That was, I think, Kyle report, like the we don't know what ones are operating at this point and what were
Yeah,
just
you don't
put
know
in
if they're active
10
or
years
not.
ago, and
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
they're long
That's,
gone.
that's the purpose of,
So
again,
this
for
would
home
really-
occupation, for the
Yeah.
license. It gets the building department an opportunity to say, hey, you guys are still active. That's great. And
Yeah, okay. Anybody have anything else, Steve?
Well, you know, I think we should get back into the red line document and have Brian stay right where he is, because I think we're gonna need him, and I just wanna lean heavily into the marketing. You know, in my line of work, and for a lot of us, you never want somebody to say, well, I wish somebody had told me that. I wish I knew that. You know what I mean? So if you do a really, really good job marketing, saying, if you're coming on as a new business, here's everything you need to know, here's everything you need to do, and then at your renewal process, here's what your renewal process looks like, and here's what we're gonna be looking at. So make sure you get all your ducks in a row, because this is what we're gonna be looking at. So nobody ever says, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. You say, well, look at our beautiful, visually appealing marketing materials, get the design team involved, make it so that every type of person can understand it. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, why don't we work for another half hour? That takes us to 5, that's 2 hours. And I think, was it you, Steve? You have a commitment?
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, so that would be great.
And then we'll do like we did before. We'll stop our work and we'll do the administrative aspects of the committee. So let's continue for a half an hour. So let's go back to where we were when Brian arrived.
I think we're working down to number 3. Oh, so there's the license, yep.
Perfect segue.
Yep. I think we all like that, okay.
I mean, I think 4 is sort of what Brian was saying. He doesn't want to be enforcing the requirement of the plate. That's the RMV, right?
Yeah, I think this section here, I think it's somewhere else that in chapter 24045, that causes a little bit of a problem for me. In here, it doesn't cause a problem.
Okay.
What this is saying is that any vehicle, it means that if your vehicle is supposed to be registered commercially, according to 540, it better be registered commercially. So, for example, if Mr. Robichaud had a vehicle that I thought needed to be registered commercially, he can look to 540 and say, well, it doesn't because of this here. Or I look and say, it does because this says it here.
Well, does everybody want to look at the subsection E over here then about the vehicles? Because we start to get into what caused the uproar at the planning board, which is the 20 feet in length, right? E1.
Oh,
That is a tough one.
See, one-ton capacitor, 20 feet in length.
Where did this come from,
Tires.
Brian?
20 feet in length is a historical provision in this ordinance. It's been
But
there
it caused almost it caused quite a stir at
Well,
the
the
planning
issue-
A
board.
lot of that, I will say, did come from the boat trailers. And
But
once,
That was an home occupation. Wasn't that commercial vehicle?
it was
Yes.
really both, but
That-
yeah, more commercial vehicle,
Well,
yeah.
We're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not looking
we're
at
not
that,
there
but I
right
just
now.
want to make sure we're understand what we're talking about here, because we're going to tackle that next. But are we comfortable if a home occupation, 20 feet, it sounds arbitrary to me, but I don't live in this space. I don't know trailers and vehicles.
So the uproar was caused by a misunderstanding of what was happening, plain and simple. In the process that the quality of life team took on, we had separated the vehicle provisions in 24046 and moved them over to 24045. It seemed like we were creating new regulation. We were not. We were just taking the same exact language as was written 24046 and moving it over to this other section. So that's what created the uproar. The 20 feet and the 1 ton and 20 feet in length and no more than 4 tires has been in our ordinance since the 80s, when they moved home occupation over to the building inspector's purview. So it was not a new provision. It just the light got shown on it when it was moved to another section of the ordinance.
So is this you're the guy who looks at these, is this a 90% solution? Are there, what are we casting out? Are we back now over to the ZBA if you're over 20 feet?
I don't disagree with the objections of 20 feet when the citizens were here saying it, because that's like a rowboat. A rowboat will fit on a 20-foot trailer. Likewise, a Bobcat could fit on it. You couldn't get anything bigger than either of those on a 20-foot trailer. So I understand what their concern was. For enforcement purposes, all I can say is put a number on it. If you put a
Okay,
number on it, I
well-
can enforce it.
So is 20, when you say, again, going back to sort of definition, 20 foot in length, that's, you're measuring from the tongue of the trailer to the back, to the tail light,
I measure from the winch.
the winch.
I don't include the tongue in the trailer.
Okay, I'm just, again, trying to avoid anything.
But if you want to
Any gray
clarify
area.
it, you'll never get me complaining if you
Yeah.
put a definition in there, sir.
I think we should just make, because again, people start getting creative. They'll put if they hear you say they measure at the winch, they'll put a winch in the middle of the trailer and say, well, this thing's only,
Yeah.
and then they'll have a boat or a whatever hanging 10 feet off the back of it.
Or they'll have a 30-foot trailer.
Yeah. So I think maybe it's a definition, but.
Is this, we're saying we'd like this definition for home occupations? And that means that if you exceed this, you're going to the ZBA, right?
I mean, to Brian's point, I mean, again, that's why I was asking what a 20-foot trailer is. Is it when the manufacturers say it's a 20-foot trailer?
Yeah, do
that
they
means
say
it's
it?
actually 30 feet or whatever,
Yeah.
because it's from,
Is that something you buy? Like I go to the store, I say I want a 20-foot trailer, and it's not up to discussion.
And it'll be 30 feet long, yeah, because there's a tongue on it.
Tongue.
But it's called a 20-foot trailer.
Right.
again, I'm trying to just make sure we put clarity here, so there's no discretionary for Brian and his team to have to deal with.
Right.
Because a 20-foot boat is a 30-foot trailer, or whatever.
So what are you proposing, Jake? You think this is okay, or you
I
want?
think we should say a length from tongue to tip, or whatever, from the front edge where it attaches to the vehicle to the back end of the metal, and just decide what that is. I don't know what the right number is, but I think we should just say that, so Brian and his team could go out with a tape measure. Nope, you're in compliance. Do you think that's
Yeah,
helpful?
All I said was just assign a number to it. I don't care how big or how small it is you want to make it.
All right, well,
I-
Jake, you work in this space, you know trailers. What's a reasonable size?
I mean, I think if we're saying that the measurement, the way it's being measured is from the tongue where it attaches to the truck to the back of it.
Taillights.
I think, yeah, to the taillights. It's not even the taillights, sometimes the taillights are on the wheels.
Oh,
Again, or you could be measuring to the axle, there's a lot of gray area here. It's maybe 30 feet, but I don't know what a length of a garage, if the vision here is that the trailer ideally is parked next to the garage, right? And the tongue is kind of in line with the garage, and the back of it's at the back of the garage, that's usually 25, I think.
24 to 30 feet.
Yeah, so I think maybe 30 feet. Because if someone, think if someone has a landscape box trailer and all their stuff is fitting inside it, that's
Yeah,
great.
I want to
That's what
be
we want.
reasonable here.
We want it to fit kind of next to the garage and be incidental to the residential
So
use.
are you gonna, Jim, are you gonna take a note and put that definition, that
Yep.
30 feet with a definition that Jake
30
said?
feet measured from the,
May I suggest that you look at the manufacturer rating on it? So the reason I like the 1-ton rating for vehicles so much is that there's a
Can look it up.
standard in the industry. You can look to the Department of Transportation standard and say, this is what a 1-ton vehicle is. Well, the same thing with a trailer. If we use a standard in the industry as opposed to all due respect, the length of a garage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you use a standard in the industry and say 30 feet is going to be it, then I think you can look at the manufacturer's
but
specifications.
then I will
and
say,
tell.
particularly in our community, we have a lot of homemade trailers. Or
Do.
trailers that are registered as homemade trailers.
We have plenty of tape measures.
Okay, so that's why, again, I just want to measure, a tape measurement, so it's not, there's
Yeah.
trailers come in all shapes and sizes and whatever.
30 seems pretty generous to me.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think the vision of this is that it sits next to the garage or next to the house and isn't running all the way in the backyard and all the way out to the street.
and is it am I correct in understanding that if the boat is used for aquaculture, it's exempt?
Well, This is something else I think you folks may want to consider,
Oh, there we
include
go.
fishing with aquaculture, because, yeah, any of these boat trailers can get pretty sizable. And aquaculture, viticulture, horticulture, agriculture, they're all exempt under zoning, but fishing's not one of them. It's not listed there. So if you wanna take care of the folks that were in here during the planning board meeting with a legitimate complaint, you might want to include fishing. We don't enforce against fishing boats. We never have.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you handle fishing?
Currently, we do not. It's just a boat on a trailer, and it's
They don't
not-
have
it's
to do a
pro-
home occupation?
Yeah, those people operating as a home occupation or no? They're not.
We don't get many. I think I've seen maybe 3 since I was here.
But there's more than 3 fishermen, so they're just,
Yeah,
But
I don't know that all of them are in their yards, though. A lot of them leave them at marinas and places like that for storage over winter.
But
I
the-
do see some.
Wasn't the outcry really more, that was on the commercial parking, right? That-
Yes.
About the fishing boats and fishing boat trailers and stuff. It wasn't on the Homock side.
it
Correct.
wasn't, correct.
So again, I think we'll deal with that, and I think we need to address fishing and aquaculture and stuff when we deal with commercial
Okay.
parking.
All right, so now I think that was the only part in subset E for the vehicles.
I guess what I was wondering is, I don't know if it would be helpful to the public if all the farming, the suite of farming industries if there should be a statement that says fishing, viviculture, mariculture are exempt under zoning, if that would be helpful to insert.
Yeah, if you put a definition in there that said,
Yeah.
this does not,
Oh,
This-
that might be helpful.
fishing, the
Because
trailer specifications don't
I
regulate
know that did
fishing. That's
raise
fine.
the ire of the
Yep.
of the
What
residents.
about all the chickens out there, the people on the side of the road, fresh eggs? Are they a home occupation? Or they're exempt?
Probably not.
Chickens.
Yeah, in Barnstable, you're allowed to have a farm under the state statute, 5 and 2 acres. It's allowed by right in our ordinance.
What's the size? Because there's chicken,
So the state says that if you're gonna have a farm, you're gonna be 5 acres or more.
but people have chickens with less than 5 acres.
If you're gonna have a farm, it's 5 acres or more, and then they made an amendment to that some years ago that said, for 2 acres to 5 acres, these are the standards under zoning. Barnstable, for as long back as I can tell, in the ordinance, has said that if you're gonna have a farm under 5 acres, you're allowed to do that as of right. And if you look in all of our zoning districts, our residential zoning districts, the majority of them allow for that. And it says, under the exempt uses provisions in the preamble of our zoning ordinance, you can have a farm stand, you can have this and that. There's no requirement to get a home occupation there. It's not a home occupation. It's just it's a agricultural thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
So Councilor Lucky.
I've never had a complaint about an egg stand.
So,
Well, I mean, the lobster thing in Yarmouth.
Yeah,
so-
the lobster thing, that was a huge
That was
issue.
wild.
so I know you have a time limit for today. I thought one really good use of time with Brian here, especially since we have on the screen, we're talking E1, E2. E refers to site plan. And I know we've had some back and forth, and I think it would be good to have some dialogue about whether or not we're recommending 3 tiers, or if we want to tighten this up for 2 tiers, 2 being by right and special permit. It's where we kind of left off last time, but we're diving into site plan again, and I just want to see where we want to go with
No,
this.
that's a great suggestion. We'll stay right, we're back at E here. How about Jake Dewey, you want to talk about this?
I mean, I think Brian's, that we sort of had that memo that it maybe made sense to remove the middle, tighten up the by right really clear, and then go to the special permit again with some, I mean, again, for us on the board, it's always helpful to have guidance of intent of you know, what kind of.
But we still
restrictions
want to
we wanna
have the three tiers. We want to have site plan
mean,
review and ZBA.
To go to ZBA, they'd be required to go to site plan, right? Which I think currently that's how it would, if they need a special permit, they have to go to site plan review.
That's how we have it written for this draft here, is if you're not meeting the by right, and you have to be referred to the zoning board, you will have to go to the site plan first. That's how it's drafted, at least.
So I'm going to ask you to not use site plan as a tool here. And the reason I wrote this because I understood that you folks are trying to include site plan because you didn't think that there was oversight of home occupations. Now you know there's pretty significant oversight of home occupations. We do it every Friday. We go through and through. People get denied. We ask for additional information. This is not a pass for anybody like you've been told in the public. It's not. So to require site plan approval is about the dirt. It's not about the use of the property. It's not about the buildings on the property. It's not about any of those things. It's about the dirt. The site plan is about what is the access onto the lot. What are you putting for vegetation and screening? How are you hooking up to sewer? It's all of the earthworks and dirt works. If you read site plan review, that's what it says. If you add this into this part of the ordinance, you're gonna have to change site plan review, and I really don't want you to do that.
But,
because
you know,
it'll
you
make a
just
mess of
mentioned
it.
that, that magic word, screening.
Yeah, but
But
that's,
screening could be done at the ZBA.
That's right.
It's not exclusive
Right.
to site plan review.
right, and
Would
not,
would that confuse people?
no,
No.
not at all.
That's a good suggestion.
So I think the objective here is to tighten up the by right, and then so then everything will kick to the special permit. So Brian will be able to decide pretty much right through, and if there's something that doesn't comply, that's discretionary, it goes to the discretionary board to handle.
Just like
And-
we
and
already do.
You've got your zoning review, which you've just gone over with us, which I saw in person, which I was pleased with. I just would say, I guess, two things. One, the result of that zoning review, is there a report that's generated? And if so, and somebody's gonna be kicked to ZBA, could ZBA have a copy of that report so that they could see your review and what you looked at and what you found and what your
That's-
findings were?
That's a great suggestion.
Because that could help your team be prepared to review the application.
Because then you would also have sent them to any other boards that you felt were necessary. You know,
Yeah.
if it was a baker that they had already been to health and we have a letter from health saying this is in compliance or whatever. And
I'm satisfied that the combination of Brian's team and their zoning review, plus Jake being privy to that report and doing his analysis with his discretionary board, I'm comfortable that that is an exhaustive, thorough process.
But I do still think that for the special permit, we need to create a list of what's required.
Yeah.
Like, with this whole screening discussion, I don't think we need to have a landscape architect do it, but there needs to be a landscape plan of some kind. I don't want to make it crazy, but some sort of, hey, here's the site. They could use GIS. We're going to put a fence here, we're going to put trees here, and they're going to be X height and blah, blah, blah. So we have a reference, and then it can go back to Brian so they can make sure it gets enforced when it's decided.
A checklist.
Yeah, no, I think we're really close here. I think we just need to, so we're going to eliminate the site plan review. Now, since, again, going on what Jim said, which is a great idea, Jim, above that, Jim, if you could bring that up on the screen, about the license, is this pretty much just what's going on right now? I mean, it looks pretty black and white. The license has a photo, a name. Is this, can you scan it, Brian, and see if we're just documenting? Is this?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm saying we're trying to, edit this. To me, this looks pretty objective and just a statement of fact. If you could review it with us and let us know that, or if we all could kind of look
You're
at it.
talking about
Yeah, so
section D?
they include.
D, yes, sorry, I should be
Okay.
clear. Section D,
Yep.
yes.
Okay. So right now, we have a registration process. It's a one-and-done process. By doing the license, as we talked about earlier, it would fall under these categories. So they'd be required to receive a license for each home occupation allowed in a residence. Responsible parties will need to renew their home occupation every 3 or 2 years, whatever you decide. and they're subject, and are subject to approval and may be withheld for violations of the code, not limited to the requirements set forth here. And this is when, you know, if we go out and we've had some complaints and we go out and look and they've abated the complaints, and we'll, you know, then they're all set. If their complaints are still active, this is where we work with the resident and have them abate those violations before we reissue the license. The home occupation license shall be for a term of whatever term you folks decide. Number 3, they shall include at a minimum, and I was pretty responsible for this list. So the license number, the name and photo of the party, location of the home occupation, the plate numbers of the vehicles, so that when we go out there and are looking to make sure that that 1-ton vehicle and that trailer are the ones that we have listed. Associated with the home, a telephone number so that we can call. Right now, you'd be interested to know that a lot of times we don't have telephone numbers for the people that we are enforcing with, doing enforcement action. We call the water department because they have to have a phone number there. So that's the only way we can get it. The email address of the responsible party and the location of the off-premises parking. So if somebody says, like the guy on Lincoln Street, look, I'm going to have my 10 vehicles, we're going to move them now. Well, where are you going to move them to, so that we can at least confirm that? And if they start putting them back, like is happening on Lincoln Road, we could say, what happened to the spot you had over on Independence Drive? And, you know, we can work with the people to get it figured out. So that list, I thought that was a pretty important list to be on the license.
I would maybe add in there just like a description, like a short description of the business, like landscaping business or landscape contractor, I don't know.
Yeah, you can put that in, that's okay.
Just so, again, so if
I
someone's
agree.
pulling it from a file,
I think that would be
They're
helpful, yeah.
That couldn't
A
hurt, especially
title.
for those odd named businesses that we don't know what they mean.
Yeah.
The next one, number 4, was home occupation, home, so the license may be revoked by the building commissioner or his designee for cause. So there's that section, Mr. Robichaud, where, I mean, there has to be cause. We're not gonna just go tearing somebody's license away from them, ruining their business and their lives because, you know, they had an extra trailer there for a day. We're gonna ask them to move it. And then if they provide false information on the application, the parking, business associated vehicles in violation of what's allowed, failing to register the vehicles with the home occupation as required by section C4. That means that if you have a commercial vehicle and it's required under that 540 to be registered as a commercial vehicle and have a commercial plate, you're required to do that. And then failure to timely communicate with the building commissioner or his designee. And that's really for the people that just want to ignore us. And that happens. It's not often, but it does happen. And then the most important part is that a person aggrieved can appeal to the zoning board of appeals. So they have an avenue out if for some reason they think that we're being
Now, this is where we
draconian.
may need to
Yeah.
work on this, because what you've just read sounds like by right, because the ZBA piece would have to be addressed in this. I mean, we've kicked it to the ZBA here, but
well, no, that would
We
be if he was
wanna-
appealing. If
That's a-
Brian's team had decided they were
Right.
in violation and they say, no, we're not,
Right.
they could go to the ZBA and
But
say,
we have to be able to explain both of these. This is I think what you read, what we're seeing here, I think, like, people could chime in, is by right. Will
So-
there be an extra piece of this if you've gone through the ZBA and have conditions from I mean, everything in here is from you. I'm saying this piece doesn't have our second aspect.
So it does, though, if you think about it. This is as of right unless you violate these provisions. And if you violated these provisions, I'm going to take an enforcement action. The number 5 is basically saying the building commissioner is taking enforcement action because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And therefore, I have a right to say that the building commissioner is wrong and tell the zoning board all about it in an appeal.
So are we saying that the license, if it came through by right, or if it went through our special permit, is identical? Is there any identification on this, that it went through the secondary process, that being the ZBA? That's all I'm getting at.
On the license itself?
they could, I mean,
Yeah,
I
we
guess
could
it
do
could have
that.
thing, so you know there's a file that's maybe more extensive to, if you're
Absolutely.
a butter to go look at.
Their occupation, home occupation, they're licensed. And then
Yeah,
it's
because-
a renewal.
Yeah, I mean, if you want the license itself or the registration document itself to say that this has gone to the zoning board of appeals, we can put that on there. I don't see why not. Jim, I mean, I don't know how much, it'd probably be on you guys to let us know if it was approved and.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be a problem. And yes, I mean, Brian's team receives every special permit that's granted anyways. So yeah, it could be on file. It could be cited that it went to the zoning board. And Brian's team is the enforcement agent for the special permits that come out of the zoning board anyway. So if there's strict conditions, they would be aware of that. And it would be the same process. If they, violated a special permit, they would be sent to the zoning board as well.
We would put just a little ZBA on there or a red dot. There's only so much
Well,
space
yeah,
on
it
a
could-
2x3 card.
It
but-
could just say special permit issued January
Yeah,
2027.
I like that idea,
Yeah.
because that way you can reference when the conditions were,
Someone can go
Or
see the
voted on.
conditions, they can go look them up or call the town and
Yeah,
see them and
as
know.
long as there's some way, yeah, that they, exactly, they can look them up, whatever you need. If a date is what triggers
if it
somebody
was
to look it
10
up.
years ago, or,
Yeah,
If you include that on number 3, the home occupation license shall include at a minimum, and then you say
Right.
any relief granted by the zoning board of appeals.
Good idea.
That could end up.
you got
around
that, Jim?
Brian,
Can-
question
go ahead.
here. So we've sort of said the words license, permit, or registration. Is there a reason to go to is there a reason why one or the other is a better way of doing it?
The dirty little secret is registration and license are interchangeable when you look at the term. The terms are interchangeable when you look them up in the regulations. It doesn't matter which. We register somebody already right now. I thought since we were doing this, we'd give it a fresh new look with an actual plastic card and, something that somebody would realize you could lose this if you aren't behaving and that sort of a thing. So that's
Okay.
why I would.
And calling it a license isn't like a legal
No,
difference thing that's necessary or, okay,
Well-
just checking.
it does in one sense. You have to have cause to revoke it.
Okay.
I mean, a zoning
And it will-
violation is cause.
And it would never drag in the licensing board in any way, shape, or form because it's a license, right?
No,
Okay.
No,
Just checking.
Great question.
don't do that.
Can I ask about section 4? I feel like it says, okay, so including but not limited to violation of any of the provisions of this section. Shouldn't that be A? Like, why is that up top? You know what I mean? Violation of any of the, and shouldn't it say, a home occupation license may be revoked by the building commissioner or his designee for cause including but not limited to, shouldn't the first one be A, violation of any of the provisions within the home occupation ordinance?
You could literally put a period after cause and then bump that down to another bullet point. Yeah.
That's what I would do. Yeah, and, I would have A be listed as violation of any of the provisions of the home occupation ordinance. Not just this section, but the entire home occupation ordinance. And then I would do another one, E, violation of any special permit conditions.
That's a good one, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just have to ask a more general question. If you wrote A, violation of any of the provisions of this section of the home occupation ordinance, and then B, violation of any special permit conditions, you don't need to say anything else. You've covered everything.
Yeah.
So why include the other ones?
Some of them are not listed, right? False information.
Oh, that's not listed elsewhere?
It's not, no, it's not.
Oh, failure to timely communicate. Okay. I would just say the,
Failure to communicate with the building
B,
official.
like parking, that's listed elsewhere. I would get rid of that
I think
because it's listed
C
elsewhere.
is probably too.
Yeah. So anyways,
You want to try that, Jim, to tighten that up there?
Yep, not a problem.
And then, we're getting close to our hard stop here. Brian, before you came, we were talking about, if you go to the next section, where we were, E, E3, we were talking about, we started in the front of this ordinance, talking about you can only have one per dwelling. And then Jake brought up a great example. What if a couple of folks, married or whatever, one of them is a house cleaner, and the other one's a landscaper, they both using that address? How do you,
100%.
How do
I
you,
agree with them 100%. You have husband and wife that operate two
A
different
lot.
businesses quite a bit.
so I think we were wanting to make sure we allow for that and don't restrict it to one, but we saw that language up front.
So if you're asking me if that's
But not by
enforceable,
right.
it's enforceable, yes. To,
Because it says in here, no event, no more than two. What if they have a teenager who's doing something?
You
Yeah,
have-
making jewelry.
you have that in Hyannis. You have a husband and wife, each with individual businesses, and a teenager with his own.
Well, that's, so
He's not a
should we
teenager
take,
anymore.
so, but should we take this out, but in no event? I mean, aren't we looking at the
Well,
impact?
I think we agreed that we
versus-
would say without approval from the
Zoning
ZBA.
board, yeah.
So we can
That's
just
the-
look at them individually, because again,
But
like
so-
the
but we
jewelry,
should
the cleaner and the
clean-
landscaper work, but the
So Betty's
two
saying,
landscapers and
Clean
the
it up
whatever.
and take these quantities out and have
Betty's
it
saying
based
it
on the
says-
impact.
Aren't we taking this whole section out of the by right?
Right,
the
so this, right now, what you're referencing is that site plan. So this would be moved to special permit, very likely, for, if it's more than two, well, that will be your discussion.
Well, there's
What-
good-
What
there's
is
good
by right,
language
what
in
is
here.
special permit?
There's good language, but it could move to the special permit.
she wants to take out in no event.
Yeah, make it less harsh. Basically saying that if you want more than one, gotta go talk to the ZBA, get a special permit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's a good idea.
All right, well, there we are. Unless anybody
Respectfully,
else has anything pressing for Brian?
Those were the key
Or
sections.
another comment?
Just one. I think that if you do only one home occupation, you not disenfranchise, but you will hurt the people that have a husband and wife. I can understand more than two, should go to zoning board, but whatever you folks think is best, we can enforce it either way.
But do you need more, does that leave it too discretionary for you, though? If, you know, dad has a landscape company and son wants to have a landscape company there, does that, you know, the ZBA might say, no, that's too much, but are you gonna be in a position, if it's two, well, you have to allow it?
Yeah, you make a valid point, so now you have 2 one-ton vehicles and 2 trailers. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Again, we have to sort of work through what the special permit package and process looks like here, and hopefully don't make it too.
Yeah, I think
That's
we'll,
kind of how we
we'll-
do it now, but it's a problem now. So, in other words, there's no limit to the number of home occupations that you can have. And therefore, we've had, and again, it's very rare, but we've had instances where you've had just that 2 one-ton trucks, 2 trailers, and now it doesn't meet the intent of the ordinance on one part of it, but it does meet, that's the objective, subjective stuff we were talking about.
okay,
I
yeah,
have
go
another
go ahead,
question, if you
Chris.
don't mind, for Brian. If you were going to execute this license and bring on another employee to take care of this task, is it something they can do every 2 years or 3 years? Because if you do it every 2 years, it's, from your stats, 5,000 inspections a year, or if it's every 3 years, it's 3,300. I'm just saying that, doing the short math, it looks like that's going to be the burden going to your department.
It will be a burden, no question about it. But I think if you do it every 2 years, I don't think it's cumbersome. Remember, a lot of this is administrative. It's really just paperwork coming through on a permit application, and it's, you know, if there's no change, it's a renewal. If there's been violations, we'll go out and look. I think the way we've proposed it is workable. If the ordinance comes out in a way that it requires us to do much more than what we've proposed, we'd have to look at additional staff, which,
We proposed meaning this
and-
original every 3 years?
yeah.
Two, I
If
think,
you say
right?
we're gonna do it every year and it requires an inspection, I mean, if you get into that kind of, you know, regulatory
I don't think
oversight.
we're
But
that
maybe
would-
the,
that would
maybe
be
the
a burden.
special permit one has a different inspection requirement than the by right? I
Right.
don't know, or, I don't know if that's,
I don't have a problem if you put it there. I'm not sure how
Or-
that's gonna look in terms of managing that, but we can
yeah.
certainly
I mean,
give
or
it
the
a shot.
ZBA potentially could condition it differently because it's an intensive use. We want it to be inspected annually because it's a concrete company that we, you know, have concerns about or whatever, I don't know.
You know what, so here, if you are going to put a number of years, In order to change it, if we find a problem, you're gonna have to come back to this process. You could put a provision, if Jim's willing to write it, that says these rules can be, like the timing can be changed from time to time with notice to the
Yeah.
planning board or whatever.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's fair to the home occupation businesses. Are you going to intensify their inspection or relax it?
My guess would be it would relax it, but you're right, it could go either way, yeah.
Because quite frankly, I received some complaints when the fee for the rental inspections went up, and the suggestion I was getting is that wasn't noticed to us, the ones affected. So I'm just saying that
Yeah.
that frequency is predictable especially if you go on a rotating basis.
Well, we're talking fee instead of inspection, so the fees, my understanding is that's gonna be an annual review now. So I totally agree that the fee was a lot, but if you had done it over time for the past 20 years, it's perfectly in line with the consumer price index. We did nothing draconian there. It just felt that way because it was a big fee that hadn't been addressed in a long, long time. But the review thing and the inspection part of it, I think it's important to be able to have that flexibility, because what you saw with the health regulations under the rental regulation things, when too many apartments came on, we reduced the number of inspections to be able to try to keep up with it. We were on the verge, if that hadn't gotten passed, we were gonna have to go to a 5 or 7 year inspection rate, which, why even have the program at that point, right? So we went from 1 year to 2 years to 3 years, and we're on the verge of going to who knows how many years. So I don't think those will ever get more restrictive. I think they'll probably get less restrictive as the workload increases. I'm sorry, it's after 5.
No, that's fine. All right, so Jim, you've captured this. We can tighten this up for our next review. Everybody keep their red lines. And then next time, we're going to focus on the by right and tighten that up. And then we're going to focus on the ZBA review. And then I think we're pretty darn close to having a final draft. I really think, everybody else?
Of the by right portion. We
Right.
still kind of have to tackle, I think we need to keep it together, the special permit.
Well, that's what I was saying, we're going to focus on those two, tighten up the by right, which I think we're pretty close on, and then look at the special permit. And we won't do the site plan review, but it was good to review these other sections here.
My only question, will you be requiring the services of our building commissioner at the next meeting? I just would like to give him proper notice if that's the case.
I think it's very
I
helpful,
think we have to, yeah.
yes.
sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. All right, so it comes to our agenda here, our next meeting date, August 27th. Brian, are you in town, or?
I've already told Jim I will make it a point.
Okay.
Thank you for that. It's great.
Oh,
But you
Chris
have
is
to
saying
finish next time.
5:30.
That's when it is.
She said she will never come again at 3. Does that, you want 5:30?
Works for me.
5:30 is better for me.
Yeah, that works for me. And
All
thank
right.
you for accommodating me today.
5:30, August 27th.
Love it.
And I don't see any minutes on here.
No, I'm finishing them up. We had a quick turnaround from our last meeting, so.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly, I
It
know.
may take me about 24 to 48 hours.
No, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, and does anyone
Move to adjourn.
have any, okay, the motion to adjourn then?
All
Second?
days. A second.
All?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Unanimous.